What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Output Lab Technique First podcast. I'm your host, Nick Nash, and this is episode number 2. Let's get into it. Following the same format, we have a couple of sections, and we have 3 sections and then a call to action. So the episode number 2, recovery debt nobody is talking about. Think about it this way. You didn't wake up broken. You got there one skipped recovery session at a time, and the bill is compounding, okay? This goes for all you CrossFit athletes, all y'all doing your workouts, and then as soon as the workout's done, you grab your stuff and leave, okay? That's fine when you're in your 20s. In your 30s, not so fine. In your 40s, you're going to start to feel it, and in your 50s, I hope you're still in the gym. We'll just put it to you like that. So section number 1, the debt, okay? Recovery debt works exactly like financial debt. Small skips, compounded interests. So in the before mentioned scenario, the end of your workout, you have a whole hour or 30 minutes before you need to be into your office. You can take 5 to 10 minutes to stretch out something, okay? As the next class is transitioning in, you can stretch something, preferably something that you worked in your workout, okay? Because in your 20s, it's cute. You can skip it. You'll be fine. You're fresh out the box. In your 30s, you're going to start to feel it. You can still skip it. But late 30s to your 40s, early 40s, that's when it's going to start to catch up to you. That's when you're going to start missing workouts. That's when you're going to start having these little nagging injuries that you've never had before, and you're not going to know why. Nobody feels it in their 20s, right? Again, you're fresh out of the box. I love to say that to my 20-year-olds. You're fresh out of the box. In your 30s, you start to feel it, but mentally you're still in your 20s. You still are of the mindset, of the athletic mindset, like, oh, okay, I'll wake up tomorrow and this will go away. Or I'll wake up in a couple of days and this will go away, okay? Still not doing anything proactively for it. And then in your 40s, you come to understand that's not the case. That's when you get the nagging knee injury, the nagging shoulder injury. That's when you get your low back bugging you for a prolonged duration. All of this is compounded over time of working out and just leaving, not giving your body time to downregulate, not bringing length to the tissues. And in your 30s, if depending on your activity level, if you were really active in your younger years, you played a lot of comp soccer, comp baseball, you played AAU basketball, you were on travel teams. If your younger years were a lot of that, your early 30s, you're going to start to feel it. We'll say between 30 and 35. If you weren't super active in your younger years and it wasn't until you got to college or until you were in your 20s, you probably won't start to feel it in your body until you're like 35, 40 years old. But I promise you, somewhere in that decade in your 30s, everything that you have done up previous will start to show itself. Okay. And again, it'll show itself in a little ache here that lingers for 3 to 5 days, or a little pain here that you don't know where it came from. And you're still under the impression that you were in your 20s, where you can go to sleep, wake up, and it'll go away. Or if you give it a day or 2 of rest, it'll go away. I'm sorry to let you know that in your 30s, it just don't work that way no more. Okay. We got old, boo. We got old. And I'm sorry to say it don't work like that. Okay. So what's actually happening in the body? The best way to think about this is in your 30s, your time on the planet and the accumulation of lactic acid and metabolic waste is starting to present itself in your tissues. So think about it like this. We have a compartment. We'll go calves. Okay. You have your calf. Okay. In your calf compartment, you have your tibialis anterior, you have your peroneals. That's like on the front part of your shin, those muscles. So if like, here's my shin bone, here's your muscles off to the side, tibia anterior, peroneals are off to the side. Then on the back side, you have your gastrocnemius. Those are the 2 fat muscles at the top that everybody likes to flex that look real good. Underneath that, you have a muscle called your soleus that runs down the sides of your shin. And if you've ever seen somebody like with a thicker bottom part of their calf, like they got thick top calves, but if they've got like a thicker bottom part of their calf, they got a really strong soleus muscle. Okay. So those are just some anatomical terms for you to throw around. The more metabolic waste and, the more metabolic waste, lactic acid, that you accumulate in that region, the more that region fills up. Okay. And the more it fills up, there's only a finite amount of space within a muscle compartment. So if you want a muscle to grow, wonderful. it's going to grow, but it's only going to grow for which it has capacity to, or empty space to fill within a compartment. And the reason I choose calves is everybody uses their feet. Everybody's on their feet too much, and nobody recovers their calves, myself included. Okay. I do more than the average bear, but I could always be better. And so when you get too much accumulation inside of your calves, then we start to see on the first onset, we'll start to see like plantar fasciitis. Okay. We'll start to see the bottom of your foot blow up and be nagging and not be able to get it away. It's painful in through your heel or underneath the balls of your feet. And then from there, it kind of creeps up to the next joint. So then maybe your ankles start to get really stiff and you start to lose dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. Ideally, that just means the ability to bend your ankle like this. And then the more accumulation you get within the compartment, now it starts to move into your knee. Okay. Because everything in the body starts with the feet. Your feet contact the ground on minimum 5,000 times in a day. On the high end, maybe 30,000 times in a day. So if we are not aware of how or where or what our feet are doing, we're just compounding dysfunction as we go up. But we're going to stop at the knee for this analogy. So the more metabolic waste and accumulation of things within the calf compartment that I have, the more it starts in the feet, moves its way to the ankle. Once it's gone from the feet to the ankle, then it'll start going into the knee. You'll start having like knee problems, little aches here, maybe right underneath your knee, you'll have some pressure. Behind your knee, you'll have some pressure. But it starts affecting the stability of the joint just because there's so much going on. And think about it as like shock absorbers in a car, okay? When you have, the analogy I like to use here with people is, have you ever been in a truck, like a old truck with really stiff shocks, okay? And you're on a bumpy road, what happens? You're going like this, right? But you can be on the same road in a truck that has some really soft shocks. There we go. I can speak. Okay. And ideally what that's going to do is that's going to absorb all those bumps. So instead of like being like this in the truck, you'll be like this. Okay. Maybe it'll feel like a nice smooth car. Maybe you got Baja shocks. Okay. Maybe you're in a real nice truck. But ideally, your body works the same way, okay? So if we don't have too much tension in our calf compartment, our calf can absorb a lot of the impact that we're putting onto our foot, okay? So we have soft shocks if our calves are malleable and pliable. But if we have too much going on in the compartment and we have plantar fasciitis and we have our tibialis anterior, the front side of your shin blown up, and we are starting to have knee issues, whether the knee is swollen or whether you just get some pain in your knee, that's because your shock absorption system has started to tighten, okay? And the more it tightens, the worse everything gets. It compounds going up, okay? So that is how we're going to think of your soft tissue, okay? And when the compartment gets big, muscles turn off, okay? Because your brain can't connect to it because there's too much pressure, so it can't connect to the nerve, therefore getting it to fire. And when that happens, we go from our body looking for an athletic position and an anatomically aligned position to more of a supporting position. So what I mean by that is your feet should be here, okay? And ideally they should be here. Your second toe should point forward. That's anatomical alignment, okay? That keeps your ankle underneath your knee and your knee underneath your hip. And we'll stop there. We can go all the way up, but we're not going to, okay? So ideally a tad bit pigeon-toed is how that should feel, okay? As your calves start to get really tight and as your body seeks for stability, what happens? Well, your feet start to slowly laterally rotate. So they start to slowly migrate to the outsides. Okay. What that means is a couple of things. Now your body is looking for support through joints as opposed to muscles. There's this thing called postural tonus. You have to have a certain amount of postural tonus. So all that means is you need a certain amount of tension in your muscles for your body to function appropriately. When you exceed that certain level of postural tonus, when you have too much tension in the compartment, then it affects the joint. Okay. And when it affects the joint, then your feet will start to laterally rotate and then you start to add pressure to your ankles and to your knees. Again, we're going to stop there. We could go all the way up, but we're not going to. Okay. That's not what we're looking for. This is not conducive to longevity. This is conducive to this is conducive to you being injury prone. Okay. So that's what we'll talk about soft tissue wise. Then we'll talk about, we touched on it in the last podcast, your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system, okay? Big fancy words for one is your rest and digest and one is your fight or flight, okay? So parasympathetic, rest and digest. This is the nervous system where your body replenishes itself, okay? Your sympathetic nervous system is what our genes, what our genealogy, what our ancestors used, what they had access to when they were running away from a saber-toothed tiger, okay? It pumps adrenaline, it pumps cortisol into your system. It allows you to output at a higher capacity for a duration, okay? Also, what it does is it starts to slow down and or null void your rest and digest functions. Okay, so when you're in your sympathetic nervous system, you can't digest your food appropriately. Your body won't use it as fuel. Your body will use it to store. Okay, this is also a big problem in we'll say weight loss in today's day and age. Most people, if you've tried everything and you can't lose weight, there's a good chance it's because your sympathetic nervous system is too dialed up all the time, and we have to dial it down. But in relation to soft tissue, your sympathetic nervous system being too regulated means when you work out hard and you tear your muscle fibers, it takes a lot longer for your muscle fibers to recover. It takes a longer time for your muscle fibers to heal themselves and to build, okay? For the sake of this analogy, let's say if you're well regulated in your nervous system, if you're in your parasympathetic nervous system and you downregulate before you go to bed, let's say, just for the sake of this analogy, it'll take you 1 to 2 days to recover from a heavy leg day. Whereas if your body is more sympathetically dialed up, if you have more sympathetic tone, that 1 to 2 day recovery can now turn into more of a 3 to 4, maybe a 4 to 5 day recovery before you feel totally good. And again, that's just because when your sympathetic system is dialed up, you lose the ability to be able to recover appropriately. Your body is now focused on running from the saber-toothed tiger than it is from digesting your food and using your food as energy to restore your body, okay? And so some of the things I've seen firsthand in a decade of coaching, we'll go on the hip. Okay? I could dive into this, but I'm really trying to keep it surface level. So we'll work from the ground up. Okay. So from feet to the hips. So in the decade that I've been coaching, I have seen people blow up their arches, plantar fasciitis, and that take them out of the gym. I have seen people pop Achilles. That's never fun. I have seen people with knee valgus, knees knocking in. I have seen groin strains, adductor strains. I have seen low backs blow up, all because the ratio is off. People are so focused on outputting. They are so focused on the intensity for which they need to hit their workout that they never truly give their body a moment to recover, right? And how I like to think about this is, ideally, we'll say, for the sake of this argument, 5 days of training, okay? Monday through Friday. Work out Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday are optional, okay? If you decide to work out 6 to 7 days out of the week, what we have to do is we really have to have the understanding of, I can't hit 7 days at a 10 out of 10 rate of perceived exertion, okay? I can't hit 7 days in a row at a 10 intensity, okay? If you do that, you can, okay? If you do that, but it is not conducive to longevity. It is not conducive to you being able to do this thing that you love to do for the duration that you want to do it for your life. And so what I'll use the analogy here is, I like to do burpees. I like to do burpees challenges. Those who know me know I be doing my burpees. When I do burpees, okay, for 30 days, we'll just say for a 30-day span, ideally it's 100 a day. One of those 7 days is do 100 burpees unbroken, okay? Get a time, play with that time. The rest of the week, it is just accumulate the volume, meaning get it done however you get it done. It can be 4 sets of 25. It can be a couple of sets of 30 with some change, however you want to get it done. It can be 10 sets of 10. It can be whatever works, okay? And ideally, the thought process there is We're not stressing the body out to the max because it's usually supplemental to what I'm doing in the gym, and allowing the body to recover or find recovery in the movement. Okay. So we'll leave that there. But those are some of the things that I've seen in the decade of coaching here. People want to come in, they want to work out 7 days out of the week. And I love that for you. Just understand that you can't go 7 days out of the week at a 10 out of 10 intensity with no recovery. I promise you that'll catch up to you sooner rather than later. I'm not wishing this upon you. I would never do that. I'm just letting you know what I've seen, having been in the industry for a very long time. And then when we say 20s 1-to-1, 30s 2-to-1, 40s 3-to-1, 50s 4-to-1, when we say that, don't let that be discouraging. Okay? Because like if you start to do the math, you're like, holy crap. If I'm in my 40s, I don't have enough time to do 3 to 4 hours of recovery for every 1 hour of working out. Okay? Don't let that discourage you. Just let that understanding wash over you and understand like, oh, okay, I need to prioritize my recovery more. Okay? If you can prioritize your recovery more, I promise you, A, your body will feel better. If your body feels better, B, you'll be able to dial up the intensity when you need. And if your body feels better because your technique is better and you can dial up the intensity when you need, I promise you, your best days are still ahead of you. Okay? And you have a lot of best days left. But it is all contingent and all hinges on making sure that you prioritize your recovery. Okay? And then, so in your 20s, the reason you can get away with it is you're fresh out of the box, right? Like most 20-year-olds we know, they can do a bunch of back rack lunges and wake up the next day and be fine, right? Whereas if you're in your 30s, you do 24 back rack lunges, you wake up the next day and you're shot. Wake up for like the next 3 days and you're shot, right? Just an accumulation of volume over time. And so that's why you can get away with it in your 20s. Again, that's also why 20-year-olds can, I tweaked this. They can go to sleep, wake up, and it's gone, okay? They don't have as much volume. They don't have as much lactic acid and metabolic waste in their system to slow down the blood circulation, to slow down the healing process, okay? In your 30s, you just have more volume. In your 40s, you just have more volume, okay? We also want to think about volume, lactic acid, metabolic waste, as something that slows down your blood circulation. The more you slow down your blood circulation, the harder it is, or the more things in your body become avascular, meaning they just don't get great blood supply. The less blood supply it gets, the harder it is for it to recover. Okay. Another example of this is if you have a desk job. Okay. I love my people with desk jobs. Do what you got to do, earn your bread. Okay. Just understand when you sit in a chair for 8 hours a day, you are teaching your body that this is the position that we want it to now form into. This is where we want your body to be. When it's not in this position, it is not quote unquote good for your body because your body adapts to this position. But B, you are also accumulating more tension, more volume, lactic acid, metabolic waste in specific regions. Okay. So that means those regions are now getting packed out. And when those regions get packed out, they don't get as much blood flow. That's why if you sit at a desk, there's a good chance you got low back pressure and or pain. If you sit at a desk, there's a good chance you have shoulder, neck issues just because we've been stuck in this position and your body's now adapted to this position. Therefore, you have more tension in all of these regions and not great blood supply. Okay. The recovery ratios speak to that because all the things that we do for recovery just improve circulation. Okay. And the reason you start to see it in your 30s, we kind of touched on it in the first podcast. The reason you start to see the breakdowns, you start to see a little bit more fires is because A, you've been around for a little longer than the people in their 20s, but B, your life is kind of changing. Okay. On average, 30s is when people are getting married, people are having kids, people are getting into their careers. So in your 20s, your baseline stress threshold is somewhere down here. In your 30s, your baseline stress threshold is somewhere up here. In your 40s, your baseline stress threshold, I'm going to say that right one of these times. There's a lot of words right now. But your baseline stress threshold is a little higher, okay? And the higher your baseline stress threshold, the more active you have to be in bringing it down. You won't be able to go to bed and it'll go down, okay? We could talk about Whoop numbers and Whoop recovery. That's a whole nother tangent that I can go off on sometime because I love the Whoop and it gives you such great data. But your ability to recover when you sleep is dictated on how well you can dial down your sympathetic nervous systems. And you're in your 40s. The reality is your training is not the hour you spend in the gym once you get into your 40s. I'll say it again. Your training is not the hour you spend in the gym. Your training is the 3 hours, 4 hours you spend recovering for every 1 hour of output that you do. And again, if you're my lovely people in your 40s, you're like, man, I ain't got no time for this. I don't have the energy. I don't have the capacity for all this. I have a wife. I have some kids. I have a whole family. I have a business that I'm running. I don't have enough time. I understand you and I hear you, okay? What I would offer is it's not about finding the time. It's about making the time, okay? And there's a bunch of different things that we can go through in later podcasts, but it's about making the time, prioritizing the time, okay? If you prioritize the time for your recovery, it'll pay dividends. It'll compound over time, okay? And then I'm 33, going to be 34 here in September. How I would audit my own recovery right now is I'm currently in the ratio of 2-to-1. I need 2 hours of recovery for every hard hour of working out. I would say I'm maybe a 1-to-1, maybe a little more than the average bear, maybe like a 1.5 to a 1. My recovery can be better, but it's better than the average bear. So what that looks like for me is at least, we'll say on average, on the low end, 1 hour, on the high end, three hours of a yin yoga. So all yin yoga is staying in any one position for 3 to 5 minutes, breathing into it, down regulating your nervous system and elongating your muscles. That looks like the that looks like the steam room 2 times a week for like 20 minutes to get everything circulating. That looks like bringing length to my muscles, throwing my feet up the wall, sitting in the bottom of a squat. That looks like meditation at least 2 to 4 times a week. On a good week, I'll hit 7, but 2 to 4 times a week, at least 20 minutes. And all that is just sitting there consciously breathing, slowing my body down. Also, when I do my meditations, I'll sit there and I'll stretch. Okay. So again, I'm at like a 1.5. Okay. I'm not quite up to the 2 that I need to be. But the body feels pretty good. And that also means that I get body work. It was a little more regular. We'll say over the past 6 months, it was like every other week or every 2 weeks. Now it's probably once a month. That needs to go up. But when something hurts, I'll do something for it. So whatever that means. So like if my shoulder hurts, I'll get a softball in my pec. I'll get a softball in my lat, teres major, teres minor, the butt crack in my armpit. If my traps are sore because we did DT and a bunch of hang power cleans, I'll sit with a barbell on my trap. That means if my feet start to blow up and my calves have too much tension from back rack lunges or box jumps, I'll stand on top of a golf ball 5 minutes a foot, working out some knots in the bottom of my feet. That means that I'll do a barbell smash through my calves. So like kneeling, placing the barbell on my calves, hanging out in any intense spot for at least 2 minutes. That means I'll be doing the couch stretch to bring length to my quads so my knees don't blow up and my low back feels good. There's a myriad of different things that I do that are just circumstantial depending on what I feel in my body. So that's where I would audit my own self in terms of my recovery. It can be better. I could find a half an hour to an hour more of recovery weekly. And so just some things to take away, right? One call to action would be track your work to recovery ratios for the next 7 days. Okay, so what that means is, let's say you work out Monday through Friday for an hour. Cool. That's 5 hours of work. How many hours of recovery are you doing? Okay. No judgment when you see the number. That'll be a big thing. You'll really want to judge yourself. Okay. No judgment. Just let it be data. Look at it objectively. Just be like, okay, cool. 5 hours of work, 0 hours of recovery. That needs to change. Or 5 hours of work, 2 hours of recovery. That needs to change. Okay. Just once you have that number, let that number bring awareness to how it is and what you're feeling inside of your body. And because of what you're feeling inside of your body, where you're at within your own mental space. And allow that number just to be what it is. Not what you think it is, not what you want to make it mean. Just let that number be that number. Okay. And once we have that objective number, then we can work to change it. And then in episode number 3, we'll talk about how the technique framework applies to something most athletes never touch. And that's all I got for you. Thank you for your time. Please, in the bottom of this video, if you're liking it, please like, comment, share, subscribe. But more specifically, comment. Okay, if there's things that you want me to go in greater detail or things that you wanted me to touch upon, please leave it in the comments, and I'd love to work on that for you. Thank you.